So, while my character in the movie may be able to see the future, I also can. And I know what the future brings. I know that when you see Madame Webb, you're gonna love it. In fact, I think you're gonna see it twice.
Welcome to Two Movies Enter, One Movie Leaves. On this week's show, we're going to be doing we're having a superhero smackdown of sorts between Morbius, the fantastic movie starring Jared Leto as Marvel's friendly neighborhood vampire, and Madame Webb with Dakota Johnson as Marvel's friendly woman spider thing. I suppose for anyone who's listened to this part, or anyone who has any kind of knowledge of movies, to be aware both movies are kind of they're set in Marvel's version of the Spider-Verse of or Marvel, fucking Sony's version of what they can do outside of kind of what Marvel are doing with Spider-Man. So they have Venom, and this seems to be their attempt at constructing the Sinister Six. So we're going to go through our patented. Would it be patented? Someone else might have a patent on it. Our review scores, compared to two, and see which is objectively the better movie, since they're both considered to be hot garbage. But my money is on Morbius.
Being the worst of the two?
No, being the best of the two.
All right.
Because it's Morbin time. And I don't know if people can remember, if anyone familiar with Morbius came out, it was fucking people were just oh my god, this movie is hot fucking shit, in a bad way. But it was, I think it was due to come out before COVID, and then obviously it got delayed because they wanted to release in the cinema. So I think they fucked around with it then. So there was a bit of a hype around it with Jared Leto being in it, and then when it came out, people were oh my god, this is terrible. There was a lot of people giving out about because I remember the first image I gave of Morbius, he looked kind of terrible in it. So then obviously when it came out, it didn't do well, but people were taking the piss out of it. There was one of the memes was someone had, I think it was a quote by Martin Scorsese saying, "Oh, this is the best movie of all time," and all this other thing. And it kind of looked for all the... Sorry, that's the dog chasing after the cat. The cat is a fan of Madame Webb, and the dog is a fan of Morbius.
Yes, it's to fight it out.
Yeah, but it seemed for all intent and purpose that Sony kind of fell for it, and they thought that Morbius was a bigger hit than it was, so they re-released it in the cinemas. Madame Webb, on the other hand, I think they seemed to know it was a piece of shit before it even came out, and there was the spoilers. Well, this whole thing is going to be spoilers anyway, so if you haven't seen Madame Webb or Morbius, still listen to it. It'll save yourself a lot of trouble actually watching either one. But the whole thing was, it happens very soon at the start. But there's about a 30-second clip of the 3 different Spider Women that are in it. But the whole thing is, they don't actually appear in the movie as Spider Woman at all. So if you see the trailer, you think, "Oh, cool." 3 Spider Women, I wonder what this is about. And then it's oh, this is absolutely nothing to do. I've been fucking scammed. So yeah, it got a bit of a thing. So I suppose we get started going into our review bits and pieces. So looking at the plot for it, as I suppose we'll start with do you want to explain the plot of Morbius?
There is none. That's the trouble. There is actually a plot and a through line to it, but it makes no sense, and it hops around all over the place. Basically, Morbius is he has a childhood illness, and he basically makes friends with another child.
They never actually say what the illness is, do they?
It's just
go,
an illness.
"Oh, it's something to do with blood."
And they're both put in this facility basically, and they don't seem to have any family or anything like that.
Yeah, because people know how rich people love looking after orphans for free.
Exactly. Yeah. So basically he makes friends with this other little kid in this facility, and they're both like little weaklings, and he's like, I'll find a cure to save both of us and fix both of us up. So funnily enough, when he grows up, he does actually he's working hard on like, you know, sort of a bats, because bats have like the ability to process the blood disease or something. I don't know what the fuck, but anyway, he extracts some shit out of bats anyway and injects it into himself, and he's kind of like, yay, I have loads of strength, but also I turn into this weird vampire as well. And the other guy as well, he gives him the cure or such, I suppose, but it just turns into this weird thing where they're sort of struggling with, oh, am I a vampire, am I not?
Yeah,
the other
so
guy sinks straight into it. He's like, look at us, we're like so...
we're evil, we need to drink blood, because Morbius was after inventing artificial blood, which it was being, and he turned down a Nobel Peace Prize or a Nobel Prize for it. And peace, it wouldn't be Peace Prize, it'd be Nobel Prize for Science, I presume.
Yes.
Although with this film, who knows?
I know, it's just so all over the place.
Yeah, and so he figures out that it's kind of like Blade, I suppose, where Blade is having the artificial blood and Morbius having the artificial blood, and he's like trying to control his urges to kill people.
And trying to find, because I think every time he takes another thing of artificial blood, the window until he needs another thing of artificial blood gets shorter and shorter until eventually he will have to drink actual blood.
And...
Whereas his friend Milo is just like, no, I'm going to eat people. Nah,
but Milo isn't his real name. Remember, it's really... it surfs over theories like, oh, I'll just call you Milo because the other people, when they're kids that were in the bed before you, were called Milo.
Yeah.
And they're all dead now. And he's like, oh, thanks. His real name is Lucius.
Yeah.
It's amazing that I remember this. Like there's so many things that are important in life that I just
I know,
can't remember.
and yet you have room for like all the Morbius subplot.
Yeah, all the Morbius information. But yeah, so that's the main plot. It differs drastically from the comic, or I think one of the great versions of Morbius was in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. So the whole thing was Morbius was always called the living vampire in it, because the comic book code in the 70s when he was first introduced,
you couldn't have like the undead in it, basically.
Or you couldn't show people drinking blood, so what they did to get around that was that he used to suck the blood, or the plasma, it wasn't even the blood, it was the plasma, out of people through his hands with suckers in his hand, which was fucking even worse.
More
I think.
disturbing.
Yeah, it was horrible. Even in the cartoon, it's just like, ugh. So yeah, it's very different. Like, I mean, I haven't really read too many more. I think the last Morbius comic I probably ever read was Seth MacFarlane's. Todd McFarlane's.
What? Todd?
Yeah.
Not even Tom. You said Tom.
Todd. I said.
It's okay.
If only it wasn't too lazy to go back and edit things.
Tommy McFarlane.
But Todd McFarlane had an issue with him, which was quite good, where it was like Morbius was gone off living with all these fucking people under, I think it might have been the Morlocks even, under New York in the sewers, and he was looking after him. So kind of in the comics he ends up becoming nearly an anti-hero, where he'll only kill the bad people. And drink their blood. Yeah. I think. I don't know. It could be totally different now. But it all linked in with Blade and the Night Stalkers and Dracula and all that. I think he might have had a bit of a comeback a while ago. I think that there was some big Dracula fucking
resurgence.
In Marvel, yeah. But so then I suppose the plot to Madame Webb is I honestly don't know what it is.
I suppose it's kind of equally as convoluted, but once they establish it's kind of easier to follow. It's like this. It starts off like out in the jungle, and you see this woman like, I have to get the spider, it's important, I'm creating something out of it, and it just goes all to shit, and she gets killed. And there's this guy hanging around, and it's like, oh, he's sinister baddie. He's
like
got
Amazonian Spider-Man. This is one of the big things where it's like they're trying to say, oh, this is where it all comes from, that there's a spider that it bites people and the venom gives them special powers out there. So you have all these guys that use it in the Amazon that are like basically like Spider-Man, and they show up and they look after the unborn child. Well, the born child, but she has some of the properties of the superpowers with the venom in her, which is going to be Madame Webb, and she has vision of these three girls who she comes in contact with being killed by this guy that's dressed up like Spider-Man. And it's set in the 90s as well, we should say, or maybe the early 2000s, I think.
Is it?
It's set in the past, because it's the whole thing.
I suppose they don't have phones and stuff.
She's a paramedic who works with Ben Parker, who of course is Uncle Ben, and she meets there's a bit of a subplot around Spider-Man's mother in it being pregnant and giving birth to Peter Parker. I think they never actually say the name, but it's like quite obvious who it is. But so yeah, it's basically her trying to save the three girls from
the evil spider dude.
Yeah, who I can't even remember what his name is. We'll call him Senior Webbo.
Yeah. And the reason he's trying to kill them is because he keeps on having these dreams that the three of them are going to end up killing him. So he's like, I'll kill them before they kill me.
But he also killed Madame Webb's mother at the start of it, so he could obtain the power of the spider. But there's some fucking great lines at it. There was one of the lines was with Madame Webb when she's looking back thinking about her mother going, oh, I hope all the spiders were worth it.
Mom.
You're just like, what?
Why did you hate me, Mom? You went out to the Amazon jungle when you were pregnant on me. And
of course she finds out that the reason why the mother went out to do all this was because she was being born with some weird disease. So the only cure was like the venom from the spider, people who are familiar with Madame Webb, probably from the Spider-Man cartoon as well, who she's normally portrayed as like an 80-year-old woman who's blind and a paraplegic that's like existed in this alternative universe or between dimensions or something like that. I think that's not what this is.
No,
kind of turns into that near the end.
Injuries,
So Madame Webb's power is like to predict the future, whereas in the comics and stuff it was like uniting all the spider people.
Yeah, because she could go through time and webs and night.
I don't know. So when you're looking at the two plots, the two of them are
equally all over the place and convoluted, I think. And very difficult to sum up in like one sentence, which is like the mark of not a great plot. Yeah. You should be able to go, it's, man goes on adventure with hobbits or something like that.
But I suppose with Madame Web, it's really just a chase movie.
Yeah.
At its core, that's all that it is. It's like a terrible, terrible, terrible version of Terminator 2. And I suppose Morbius is basically fucking nearly any vampire movie or monster movie that ever existed, where it's struggling with and the one is bad and embraces the thing. So which one would you think the plot is better?
I think it's probably a bit more straightforward in Morbius insofar as like, I created this thing, now I'm a vampire, oh no, and my friend is acting out a bit, so I need to stop him. But I think once Madame Web gets established, it's actually easier because, like, okay, he's going to try and kill them and she's going to try and stop him, and that's it.
So you think Madame Web has a better plot?
I think it probably hangs together probably a bit better, because there were times in Morbius when I was kind of going, what is he doing? Who is this? Why are they doing that? Why how is he
they never
this?
Even show, like, your man Lucius getting it. It's like they're in the lab and he had 2 vials of the things that would turn you into like the vampire, and he's like, no, this is mine. No, you can't have it. It's a curse. I don't want it. And then all of a sudden someone else gets killed, and it's like, Lucius did it. And it was like, how did he get this thing?
Vampire type thing.
And then there's this one, another doctor who's in it, who's like, I suppose, a love interest. And she gets turned into a vampire at the end by Morbius accidentally dripping his own blood into her mouth when she's dead. So they're obviously going for setting things up, but I think Morbius is more basic. I think it's just more chaotic. The execution of it is.
It is. It doesn't hang together all that kind of sensibly. I suppose the word doesn't make sense. Like as you're going through it, you're kind of like, when did this happen?
And even there's a bit where you can see where they're all trying to. I suppose one of the things is like the cohesiveness of it in like the universe that Sony is kind of building or trying to build, where there's a reference to Venom, where you just kind of go, how the hell does Morbius know who Venom is? Where he's like robs these evil guys' lair and he's like, I'm Venom, and they're like, ooh.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it's like, why would you even say it? And how would you know? No one's meant to know about Venom. And then there's cops that make reference to something happening in San Francisco, which is where Venom is set with it. In Madame Web, there was like things about Spider-Man and stuff, but they don't get into the whole thing. And at the end of Morbius, there's a bit where the Vulture. Michael Keaton's Vulture shows up and says, hey, the two of us.
Yeah, you should team up.
Yeah, and he's like, interesting. It's like, what? But So you give it to Madame Webb.
I do think so, because once it gets going, it's pretty straightforward. As I said, it's a chase movie. It's like, oh, bad man trying to kill girls, trying to save girls. It gets a bit confusing at times, I suppose, because she keeps on having, like, obviously the precognitions of the future. So you have a scene, and then it's like deja vu because it goes back a bit, and then it's like, oh, now we'll replay the scene, but we'll do it differently. But I think all in all, it's probably a little bit easier to follow than Morbius.
Now,
Not that Morbius is overly complicated.
yeah, it's not you're going to go, fucking hell, this is
it's like
written by a
Ulysses.
genius.
It's just, it's so scattershot, I think.
Yeah, look, I'd go with Madame Webb as well, just for lack of getting into an argument about either one of the movies at this point. But next we have entertainment value and rewatchability. Now, we'll say it's the second time we looked at Morbius.
But yes, and it's the first time I actually paid attention because I think I fell asleep for the first one. Yeah.
And I have to say, like, I actually really enjoyed it the second time looking at it.
It's something I could actually see, watch it again, whereas with Madame Webb, okay, the start of the set pieces are interesting enough, but I think once you've seen it, it's just kind of, I'm never going to watch it.
Yeah, I can never picture looking at Madame Webb again, unless there's some kind of thing where someone comes out with some 3 men and a little lady shit, where they're like, oh, there's a ghost in this scene if you look close enough, or oh, there's UFOs or something like that. But Morbius, I think, definitely look at it again.
Even just to figure out what the fuck is going on, I think it might warrant another watch, because you're kind of like, hang on, I missed that. What is that after happening there? What's going on?
And I think the first time we looked at Morbius, I was kind of, I won't say excited to see it, but I was looking forward to it, because I'm kind of like, oh, cool, Morbius in a movie. Let's see what they do with it. And because Venom wasn't too bad, I suppose, so the hopes were totally down in the dirt for it.
But that's, I suppose, having watched it the second time round as well, it seems like the special effects held up.
Special effects look really good. Now, I don't know if this is a damning thing for a lot of newer movies that are coming out, that like things have gone downhill since the release of Morbius. So Morbius is a shout, but and it seemed, like I was saying to you, that the effects seemed to get better as the movie goes on. Yeah,
they got more used to what they were doing.
Yeah, and the vampires looked more, I won't say realistic, but they looked better. They looked
scarier, because a lot of times with vampires, they're just like, oh, we just frown a bit at the vampire. But this was proper, face elongating and sinking in and contorting a bit. It actually looked kind of cool.
Yeah, and it is actually fairly entertaining. Like that's the thing with Morbius. Like, there's enough murders in it. There's enough bullshit goes on in it, and just stupid. And I think Jared Leto was actually okay in it. Now, it is, a lot of it is just where you're laughing at the movie, you're not laughing with him, I suppose, is the thing. So it could be a thing with Morbius that there's certain elements of it that are so bad it's good, because it is kind of, it seems to think it's self-aware, but it's like, oh no, you're not, this is like so cringy with it. And it's, I think because there's so many things out of whack with it as well, that it's entertained. Whereas Madame Webb, I found fucking deathly boring. There's not one bit where you're going, hey, Madame Webb, do that.
Saves the day.
Yeah, and as well, some of the only entertaining bits in it that I thought were, say, Dakota Johnson's actual portrayal of Madame Webb, where
I think where
she seemed nearly like she was like, oh my god, this is.
I think how she portrayed it as being really uncomfortable in her own skin and just not able to interact to people or not caring about people. So suddenly, when she's these 3 teenagers thrusting on her, she suddenly has to like decide if she's going to bother her arse to save him. Like,
but there was nearly kind of a thing where it was like, my god, she's not even acting in this. She's just like, at the point, she's just like, I don't care, this is shit. Where it's nearly like she knows this is terrible. Where there's some I think to it. So, like, not a chance I'll ever look at Madame Web again, like I was saying. Would you, since you thought the plot was so amazing?
Fantastic. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't really watch either of them again, to be honest with you. But I'd probably watch Morbius quicker because, as I said, I know what's going to happen. It's a very basic plot line, I suppose, in Madame Web, insofar as like, oh, they're running away and your man's coming after him, kind of a thing, So I think with Morbius, I'd probably watch just to figure out what the fuck was actually going on.
So we give that one to Morbius, then, definitely. So we're sending that one all 1/5 of the way through. So on to our next one. It's the theme of the movie, the identity, I suppose, the depth. of it all. I suppose if you were going to like try and analyze Morbius, I suppose the theme would have. What would the theme
I
to
suppose
Morbius
it'd be like two friends and one turns evil and one
So
tries
friendship, kind of trying to do the right thing.
two
over,
best friends. Well, yeah, I actually think both of them, the team is kind of like friendship and like support and loyalty and stuff like that. Because Madame Web, you have these three girls who are thrust together.
Yeah, Madame Web is
nowhere,
like
it's
family,
kind of,
isn't it? It's kind of like it's that fucking the cliche of like, oh, you don't have to be related to be family, or you don't get to, you don't.
Family don't end with blood, boy.
Yeah.
But it is, the three girls, all three sets of their parents are either absent or not available, and this kind of thing. So they formed their little sisterhood with what's her face. Madame Web is sort of like the mammy figure, or like the weird aunt, I suppose. And it's all about sort of, we have to stick together and we have to work together. And whereas I think the other one, again, it's friendship, but it's when one friend turns against the other and they take a different moral position, then I think.
Yeah, and I think maybe Morbius is a bit of a warning about like the dangers of science and interfering.
Yeah.
With
The dangers of vaccinations.
Yeah, maybe imagine if it was that they knew COVID was coming and it was a big anti-vaxxer movement. In
Don't do
Morbius.
this or you'll just turn into a
You
terrible
turn
villain.
into a vampire. Everyone goes, I tell you, if they had to say that with COVID, like if you get the COVID jab, you'll turn into a vampire. Everyone would have got like 20 shots.
They'd be like, I'll try that.
Yeah.
That's grand.
With it. But yeah, there has to be more to Morbius. I suppose it's a morality tale, isn't it?
It is, It's doing the right thing, and do you want to sacrifice others just so you can be okay or you can continue living, I suppose, which is always the theme of any vampire film, isn't it?
Whereas I suppose his whole thing at first was nearly a quest for immortality, you could say, with like his whole thing with different sciences. And he was, after becoming this famous scientist, and he was a bit of an egomaniac. And then he learns that he loses everything, and it's only through losing everything. Other thing again, he drives up in a fucking Tesla, I think, at the end, or some sports car. It looks like a really expensive car when he meets the Vulture, and it's like, where did you get that from?
He's a vampire. He could have taken it from anywhere.
So they never really, do they show his apartment or anything in it?
I can't remember. I have lots of holes in my memory as regards this film. I don't know why.
Whereas, like, he's probably got a few quid because he's a doctor, and like he gets the whole thing from a scholarship because he fixes a blood transfusion machine with a spring from a pen.
Oh yeah,
when
I
he's
forgot about that.
a kid.
Christ, yeah.
And like the doctor who's looking after him, he's been in Dune and a load of other things. He was in Fringe actually as one of the time traveling or dimensional traveling bad guys. Or well, it turned out that he was a good guy.
So he analysing another show that was
because they're very similar.
Is it?
But yeah, and so I suppose the theme of Madame Web, like you were saying, is family, finding family.
Yeah, and I think I suppose I kind of said it at the time. It sort of has a whiff of sort of like empowering young girls and all the rest, and you can be kick-ass too, and don't need no stinking.
Well,
man.
it's all about the with great power thing, isn't it? Because even one of the Spider-Men is talking about it's along the lines of when you accept the responsibility, you will get great power, and one of her fucking powers turns out to be that she can be in 3 places at once, and.
So omnipotence. She's basically God.
Yeah. So if you want to be in 3 places at once, all you have to do is go, I accept my responsibility as the manager of Burger King.
You can then manage 3
Yeah, you don't need
once.
anyone. You can be cooking the fries, the burgers,
flipping. You can be serving at the window.
Yeah, clean the toilets. And be like, oh my God, this is
I know that's where your ambitions go to. If you could be in 3 places at once, you're just like, I'd run a Burger King by
you
myself.
get the manager's wage. Well, actually 4 places because she's in the one place where she is, and then it's like there's 3 other places. So it'd be like a manager's wage and 3 other people's wage you could claim.
Yeah, I still don't see why you kind of go for a burger joint. Could you not go for something I don't know, like run a science
You'd also
factory.
get 3 or 4 free lunches.
I'd say.
As well. It's paying for itself.
Yeah, with hospital bills after you have a heart attack after eating 4 burgers a day.
Yeah, that actually did happen.
Yeah.
But as well, I don't know if we mentioned it in the whole thing as well with the plot of Madame Web. that she was we did say she was a paramedic, but how she got her powers got awoken was she was trying to save someone in a car that was hanging off a bridge, as did they always do in these movies, and she fell in and died and got brought back by Ben Parker, who's played by Adam Scott in this, which it's just
I know, you could have gotten a bigger role even, but I suppose there's not many male roles in the film.
No, I think they just wanted to tie it together. Yeah. Now the whole thing, I'm amazed actually didn't. You know, the usual crowd that are giving out about women movies.
Yeah.
Weren't saying, "Oh, this is what would be the opposite of misogynistic."
What?
What would be the opposite of misogyny? Like hating men.
No.
Is there such a word?
I thought. There is. You've totally befuddled me there for
Femisogyny?
No, as in like hating women.
Yeah, but like you could say because like the only time that men are in this, they're bad guys. He's a bad guy.
All right. Oh yes.
But dang, it ruins it with Ben Parker and all the other men that are
being
okay
nice and good and upstanding and all the rest. Yeah.
What was there was a movie that we saw. Oh, Supergirl. There, the only men that were in that were fucking
dicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
With it, so you can't say it's like, I don't know, it is pro women, but it's not really like
It's
girls
not.
allowed pro women or
No,
anything.
it's just like it is. These three girls happen to band together, and they're just like, yeah, we look after each other, kind of thing. It's not. I noted the fact that it would be good for younger women if they were watching, kind of like, oh yeah, see, we can be kick-ass too. But
And
that's because you very rarely get a film who is centered on the female characters as being the central action figures. It's normally like they're on the outskirts. They're like a love interest, or they help along the way. They're never the ones. The
Well, I suppose this would, without a shadow, without pass that. What's that test?
The Bechdel test, is it?
Yeah,
the
where
Bechamel test.
you have to have female characters that talk about something other than leading man, isn't it? Or
They have to have at least one sentence that isn't talking about the hero of the story.
And like, I mean, there's loads of talking about like how to clean the kitchen and kind of what they're
doing
going
the washing up and stuff, and
all that. But
to
it's
have nice pigtails in their hair and wear skirts.
with the girls. One of them is what's her face. She's big at the moment. She was. We saw the other film that she was in. Oh,
You've done your research well on this one, haven't you?
yeah.
Was it Immaculate or something?
Yeah, it was Immaculate she was in. Oh, God, why can't I? Sydney Sweeney. She's in it. And then one of the other girls, she was the kid out of Ghostbusters, the love interest in the new Ghostbusters. She was very good, actually, in Ghostbusters. And I thought she was pretty good at, they were all actually fine.
That's what I mean. The three kids in it they were developed enough insofar as I suppose we're talking about this in characterization and all the rest, but they were their own individual people, and you could see teenagers acting like that nowadays.
And like they got on alright. So like the teams that with them find the family and friendship, because none of them really had any friends or family. It turned out that they're all either abandoned or one thing or another. So I don't know, because there's not really. It's weird, like so. Who would you think wins, or who would you give the point to on the team?
I suppose, again, I'd probably give it to Madame Webb, only for the fact that the Morbius, the whole vampire thing, is a little bit overdone. It's been knocking around for years. Whereas with Madame Webb, you have even the whole thing of like, if you could see the future, would you change it? Do you know what's going to happen if you do change it? And she changes it quite often, because obviously if she sees somebody dying, she's like, no, you're not.
It is that Spider-Man thing about like accepting responsibility, but there is, I think it's a lot more clear with Madame Webb, even though they're both cliched and stuff, but it's when you come Morbius, it's so contradictory as well, where he's like, no, I'm not going to kill people, and then he goes off and kills loads of people. And there's never even a thing where he's like, I swear I'm only going to kill the evildoers. He's just like, fuck it.
Whoever.
With it. And even with the powers that he gets doesn't really come from any real harsh, where he's like, this is a curse, and it's like, but you couldn't walk, you were dying, now you're like...
You've got super strength, you can fly through fucking the air, you can walk on walls, basically.
You've got abs, all you have to do is drink your fucking... your artificial blood, and he's like, someday I might be able to... But you don't know that.
Yeah, just keep going until you can't.
make more fake blood. Fucking genius.
Yeah, exactly. Go to a joke shop. They have loads of fake blood there.
So it is.
Do joke shops still exist nowadays?
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Yeah.
Anyway, go on then.
They're probably like Halloween stores and things over in America, aren't they?
True,
because
I
I only know that from like looking at Terrifier 2. There's a Halloween. But yeah, you used to have party
shops.
stores over here, yeah. So yeah, I think I'll have to give it to Madame Webb as well, just because it's clear about it. So yeah, Madame Webb is taking the lead.
An early lead.
Yeah, so then we're going into the next part, which is the acting. The characters and performance. So with Morbius, I think the acting is pretty terrible.
It is. Yeah. In fairness, all around.
Yeah.
In fact, I think probably the only decent actor in it is the guy who looks after the two of them as a kid. The doctor. He adds a bit of gravitas.
Yeah, he seems to be acting seriously. Where, like, Jared Leto, I'd say he's playing up or he's hamming it up, but it's not like he is. It's like he saw how well Deadpool did for Ryan Reynolds, and he's like, right, I'll try and inject a little bit of that humour into it, or
be a bit quirky.
Yeah, and there's some bits in it, because like Jared Leto, he played the Joker when they tried to do the first Suicide Squad movie, and he was awful in that version of the Joker was just terrible, and people were reporting that he kind of went full method acting, and he was like, they hated him on set.
He was a bit of a
So
jerk.
he was kind of adopted that thing as being a method actor. So I God knows how many homeless people he murdered when they were like leading up to Morbius with it. But yeah, and Matt Smith, he was just
terribly dislikable, which is terrible, because you would think you would have empathy for somebody who grew up having such a horrible childhood, due to illness and stuff.
Well, he would have been in Doctor Who. Like, I've never seen him as Doctor Who, but I know a load of people really liked his version of Doctor Who, and it was him and David Tennant were really the two that kind of got
the
that
big ones,
going,
I suppose.
So you would have, and then there's like weird shots of. Remember, there was like a dance sequence with him topless.
Oh yeah, or it was that whole thing like, I'm so cool, I'm just going to dance and look in the mirror, and it was a bit like American Psycho, I think, nearly.
Yeah, and then never really got into the whole reason why he became evil. It was like, I'm sure they meant to say, well, look, it's the difference between the two, because at the start of it he whacks some kids that are after robbing a letter on him, but that doesn't mean he was being bullied. He stood up for himself.
Exactly, he was being terribly bullied.
Yeah, and he seemed to understand what vampirism was straight away, as if it was like a thing that.
This is very common. Exactly. Yeah, sure. I'll just lean into it, kind of thing. He wasn't questioning that.
Yeah, his whole thing was, this is who we are. I want to show Morbius that this is who we are, and he should embrace it. So then he goes off and he kills Morbius's love interest, the other doctor, and she's like hardly in it at all, and when she is in it, it's very wooden acting from her. Like, I'm not saying that any of these people are bad actors apart from Jared Leto, but because sometimes it happens, like we talk about sometimes with the happening that like Shyamalan
it's just the script or the director or a set of circumstances where things just don't come together, and everything looks a bit wooden and off.
But for some reason, it's just everyone in this, even the cops when they show up, it's like, of course, the two detectives that you normally get in these movies looking into things, going, hey, we think that you're responsible for then like with Madame Webb, like I've never seen Dakota Johnson in anything that I'm aware of, and from what I know, she's like a fairly well respected actress, and she's after doing a lot of indie movies. Of course, she did the 30 fucking, what was it, 30 Shades of Grey?
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey, sorry, yeah.
I was wondering what the fucking the 30.
So I'd imagine that probably was some great acting. I don't know, I could be wrong, I've never read them. It could be like the Lord of the Rings for fucking middle-aged women or something.
Gems, yeah.
But she's pretty awful in this as well. And the kids, I think, who probably aren't kids, are probably all in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
When they were doing it. They're believable as having like a laugh, and teenagers and playing up to their different kind of quirks and stuff. The bad guy in it, he's fucking awful. It's like he can barely act. Yeah,
and again, there's no direct motivation for him. It's just like, why are you being such a massive dick about things?
Yeah.
You know?
And Adam Scott is just Adam Scott in it.
Yeah. the usual likeable, sort of dependable guy.
Yeah, and Emma Roberts is in it. Julia Roberts' niece, who she's playing like the mother of Spider-Man. So she's like barely in it anyway. But it's even like the side characters are just, I don't know. The acting is just overall terrible, I think, in Madame Web.
That's it. I mean, like, even say the throwaway scenes, which I don't even know why they're in there, where they're having like the baby shower and they're like, oh, let's guess the baby's name. And everyone is just so like, I guess it's baby.
Yeah, and that's because they're trying to not say Peter Parker in it. Where, as well, one of the big things, if that was Ben Parker's sister, her second name obviously isn't, because it's like she got married to a guy who was like the Peter Parker's father. So her second... So
don't try and think about it too much.
But you know, it should have been his brother. So unless... it don't make it, you know, there's...
You're starting to do that
didn't even pop
Irish
that.
thing of tracing families. Aren't you? You're like, oh, now, whose aunt is that and who is she related
But
to?
it shouldn't have been his sister
She's one
that
of the
was
Parkers from
the
New
mother,
York.
because that means that there's like some horrific incest going on. Maybe that's how Spider-Man got his powers.
Oh, God.
It's through the power of incest.
Yikes.
Yeah. Whereas like some deformity.
Instead of being born with like webbed feet or something like
He's
that.
born web shooting out of his arse.
There you go.
So with the acting, it's a hard one to... I'm going to have to give it to Morbius, because I do think in Madame Web the acting was just overall terrible. Where I suppose in Morbius you could nearly say, or they could argue, all we knew was we were hamming it up because it's that type of film. So it's hard to...
Yeah, I'll go with that actually.
Yeah.
We'll give it to Morbius.
Yeah.
Why not?
So is that a...
They're level
draw,
pegging so far, aren't they? Yeah.
So with the dialogue next...
I don't think there's even any argument for this. If you're going to go for like straightforward, actual like good dialogue, which there isn't any in any film, Madame Web will take it, because everything is just so outrageously hammy in Morbius.
Yeah, and
So if you want to go for like outrageous hammy dialogue, go for Morbius.
as well, as simple as the story is in Morbius, it is, I won't say confusing, because it's not like you're going to be scratching your head, but it's not very clear, I suppose, with it. There's a lot of things where it just jumps around wrong way, whereas with Madame Web, because it probably is a more simple story, and it nearly fucking hammers it into you the whole time. Even where there's that whole thing where where they're trying to show that she has the power of precognition. Like, they do so many scenes with that, and they go on for like some of them. There's one on the subway that goes on for fucking 5 minutes where she keeps jumping and she's like, am I in a dream? And she's still in the thing where she's seeing the future, and then it shoots back to normal life, and then it goes through it all again, and then it goes back.
Yeah, it's like, just in case you missed it the first 15 times, here it is again.
And they use a weird kind of way of shooting, but I suppose at least they get the story across. Like, the dialogue, like you were saying, is awful in both of them, but I suppose we won't linger too fucking much on this one, because it's like, I don't know. So yeah, we'll give Madame Web.
Yeah.
So Madame Web is after sneaking into the lead again. So we're halfway through, and Madame Web is winning.
Yes.
3-2. The cinematography.
Now, this will be, I think, straightforward for more. If we're including special effects in that, I think. Are we including special effects?
Yeah, I think we'll include special effects.
I think the special effects are actually very good in Morbius.
Yeah, I think the cinematography, it's shot, but there's a lot of weird kind of bits in Morbius. Morbius, yeah. Where it's even when he starts flying, there's a bit where he's listening in around. I don't like the bit with the ears. There's a bit where the ears are rippling like water or something like that. It's horrible to look at.
It is, yeah. But I think the actual the design behind the special effects, where like as he's moving through the air, it's almost like you can see it's starting. You can see his movement lines, and it's like he's floating on the wind, kind of a thing. And it's all this. It's like a watercolor almost, or something like that being smeared. I actually thought that was kind of cool.
But even the color palette in Morbius, I thought, was like they get the dark and gritty thing without it being overly dark and gritty. Like, you know, it's not like Batman. Now, it's quite obviously influenced by Batman. Even the music sounds like fucking Batman at times. But yeah, Morbius. But there's like hints of purple and nearly bright greens and things in there, which makes it stand out. It's actually quite a nice looking movie. with that.
That's it, and I think as well the special effects, as I said, if we're going to be including in those, I actually think the sort of the transformation of the two guys is kind of good as well, the actual makeup and all the rest.
And the take on this Zack Snyder slow motion
CGI,
stuff with the fights is quite good. I think it does come into its own near the end when Morbius goes off to fight Milo, when it turns into like fucking
just a SmackDown.
it turns into fucking The Matrix 3, but like with nearly better effects, where they're smashing through buildings and through the ground, where you feel the real power behind these. And like, I mean, Morbius is not like that in the comics at all. He's not like overpowered. He's normally kind of quite weak, but it does. It looks really, really well.
Yeah,
and I think
for a film that's shot a lot at night time and in the shadows, it doesn't really suffer from that whole like, Jesus Christ, turn up the contrast. I can't see what's going on.
It's not like the fucking last episode of Game of Thrones or anything. I think it's quite good. Like, I mean, there was times in it where the two of us were saying, actually, that looks fucking really, really good. Especially midway through, I think, when they got the vampire transformation down to a T. Because at first, when you see him as Morbius, you kind of go, oh my God, that looks really, really bad. They make him look like a bat. Where later on in it, when they start looking at like vampires, and Matt Smith looks way better as a vampire than he does as a human. In it, he seems kind of scary, and you kind of go, oh, it would have been.
I think I kind of like the sort of the hollow cheeks and the creepy teeth and stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't typical vampire teeth where it's just like two fangs. It was like everything was all fangs.
Yeah.
Sharp.
But it looks like a movie, a proper big budget movie.
Yeah.
It has that feel to it as well. Whereas Madame Webb, I don't know, it might be because a lot of it was shot during the day or something like that, but it's nearly too stark or something it's too saturated.
To me, it's kind of the difference, as I said, between like, oh, it looked very cinematic Morbius. This looks like something that could be a TV show.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the difference between TV cinematography and film cinematography in my mind, I think.
Now, what was done very well, I thought, was when she did die, when she was underwater.
There was all the sort of the webs as such, like connecting everything.
Showing that. But then throughout the rest of it, you don't really, like, when she's having the visions, they all get killed in them constantly. So she's having these visions about, we'll do this so we can avoid this happening. And they're just real basic action thing where it's like he picks one of them up and breaks their neck. And you know where it would have been better if he'd like ripped one of them in half or, I don't know, fucking. He's got venom in his touch. Isn't it? And
it is, and the longer he holds on to you, the more poison you get. Even at that, like, I mean, that didn't. You could have been so much more dramatic with that as well, you know, with special effects and
the Spider-Man in it looked like something off Face Off that someone was after who they'd get rid of.
Yeah, really shonky design.
Yeah. But the overall look of it, and they kind of started doing that soft focus thing whenever they were having visions as well, which just wasn't. It got the point across, but. Yeah, no, I think for a movie that's the money spent on.
Yeah, they set up, I suppose, all the sort of the locations as well. Like the facility looked like one of these old timey facilities. You know, sort of when they were in flats, they looked kind of like cool and Batman-y, or you know, sort of Patrick Bateman-y or something like that. They kind of the world they inhabited was fairly cool, I thought. As well. But anyway, sorry.
But yeah, with cinematography, I'd give it to Morbius, hands down. With it. Whereas maybe Martin Scorsese that wasn't made up at all. Maybe it was like, this is one of the best films of our generation. And we're getting there now. It's still a draw. Fucking hell, imagine if it ended up in a draw between the two. But with the editing, I suppose the special effects are included in that. The editing, I don't know. It's one thing I'll say with Madame Webb, I kind of forgot about when we're talking about cinematography. The way that they were doing those fucking zoom in shots for half the movie. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like someone was just filming and they were like, oh, maybe I should have a close up shot of that, and they didn't cut it in between, so you get the
crash zoom. It was like somebody running around with a camcorder. Yeah. That's what it reminded me of. I know they were probably trying to go for that like reality kind of thing where you know, you get in the likes of say The Shield where it's like high paced and frenetic kind of a thing.
But it didn't feel like that.
It just felt like somebody with fucking ADHD or something.
It felt like really bad editing, didn't it? Yeah. And it was just really annoying.
Yeah. It threw you back out, because I know that style of filming is meant to like make it feel more real, because it feels like it's somebody shot it, you know, sort of like you'd see on a clip off a mobile phone or something. But it was just really off-putting.
Well, they abandoned it as well. About after halfway through the movie. And it's if they were doing it in action scenes, it would have made sense. But they don't even do it in the fucking action scenes. It was stuff when people were talking at the start.
And it was like crash, zoom, bang, let's move.
Yeah.
And it was like really.
And then it was like a second later they do the same, where it was just constant, and it was just like, oh my god, this is fucking sickening.
It was like somebody trying to shoot their first MTV video, but without knowing how to shoot a MTV video.
I don't know. I just found the editing in it really, really bad. Well, there was nothing mad about it. Like, not that there was like fantastic editing in Morbius, but I suppose at least with Morbius, the effects were a bit better. And like, if you're talking about pacing as well, Morbius is like about an hour and a half, which I think they went, right, like, people won't take any. You know, we have to be realistic. Where Madame Web is nearly 2 hours long.
Yeah. And for what, like?
Yeah, it's very. You knew what was going on. It's not as if fucking like all of them are going to get killed.
Yeah, it's not going to come as a surprise.
Yeah, so you know, the way that they get it, it's just like it's a pointless movie. Whereas in Morbius, you kind of go, well, maybe he won't kill Matt Smith's character. You know, there's a little bit of I don't know. Something might happen, you know, or maybe he'll turn into a bit of a villain, because it's meant to be like that villain anyway.
It's not as predictable, I suppose.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just, I think, for as chaotic as Morbius is in its plot and the details to it, I think it is just edited a little bit better than Madame Web, because Madame Web is just a bit boring. So I think at that point goes to Morbius.
Yeah.
Soundtrack.
I can't remember either of the soundtracks for any of them. The only thing I can remember, I suppose, in Madame Web is they were using music a little bit as sort of...
Oh, it was like...
You know, at the diner and stuff like that. So there'd be a Britney Spears song playing in a
that's
diner.
Toxic. They had a whole fucking fight scene around Toxic, didn't they? Yeah.
And she saw them all getting killed, and then she jumped back out to her, and she was in the car, and Toxic came on the radio, and she's like, oh no, I have to get there quickly. So I suppose in that respect... They used music, score, and sound effects, all that kind of stuff to their benefit.
I didn't even cop it during the film. There was two bits in the one bit in the film in particular we were fucking shitting ourselves laughing at, where at the end where she crashes through. I don't know how she got on top of a building or in the middle of a building and crashed through the building and hit him with a fucking ambulance. And then she crashes into the diner as well and fucking hits him.
With a taxi.
With a taxi. So it's like the director had a bit of a hard on for like cars crashing in and fucking. It's like a fail army.
It is a bit actually, yeah. But again, I suppose the sound kind of threw me out a little bit, I suppose, for Madame Web as well, because when the girls are approaching the diner, suddenly there's music playing, and you're kind of like, and it was kind of. It would have been just sort of like, sort of background, sort of...
But it didn't get louder as they got closer to the
what I'm saying is
diner.
it started off, the sound would have been your typical background noise. So you normally say shoot for film, right, okay, we'll just, take ambient noise or whatever and do that. And it was just the ambient noise there where it's just like sounds of the night or whatever, and then trudging along through the wood. And then this music just started blaring out of nowhere, and you're just like, what the fuck? Why have they suddenly decided to kick up with the soundtrack now? It became obvious then once they hit the diner, the music is coming from the diner, but it was just, that was done really badly.
Yeah,
it took me straight out of the film.
Because we actually were talking about that when I was going on, going, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Like,
why have they suddenly decided to start using music?
Because it sounded like someone playing music on a mobile phone.
Yeah.
That they were walking along, it's like, are they listening? And then it's like, but they don't have mobile phones.
Yeah.
Because it's meant to be set in a time where someone has one person has a mobile phone, and they're like, oh wow, cool. Because she's the rich one.
Yeah.
The Morbius, I can't remember, but I think it was more they were going for like that Hans Zimmer Batman.
Well, that's the thing. I think good sound design is where you don't necessarily notice the sound, and it doesn't take you out of the film and distract you. Whereas I didn't get any of that with Morbius. Whereas with Madame Web, it distracted me a few times. I know they were trying to use it as a sort of a motif or a sort of, oh, here we go again. It's back. It's deja vu or whatever. But it took me out of the film. It didn't serve to like throw you into a deja vu kind of a thing. It was just like, no, suddenly I'm sitting on a couch and I'm watching this weird film.
Well, that's, I suppose, with Morbius as well. At least they didn't go for, the way sometimes with these movies they'll go for a thing where they'll throw in an old song to have it as a theme tune with like nearly a pun on it, where it'll be like, oh, I got you under my skin or some shit like that. Where they avoided that.
Let's do the mash.
It was a monster mash. That was the whole team tune. I was working in my lab late one night. Maybe that's where they got the plot from.
It could be actually. Yeah, I think so. But yeah, soundtrack, sound design, film score. I think it's going.
It's going to be Morbius, isn't it? Yeah. And directing. We're getting near the end.
Stick with it.
Yeah,
we're
stick with
nearly
it.
there.
Yeah, we're nearly there. So with the directing and vision and execution, I'm gonna have to look up who the directors were for both. S.J. Clarkson for Madame Webb. Who was previous thing? Oh, Doctors and Casualty. She's an English.
EastEnders. Yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
these are all like English soaps from years ago.
Yeah, she's done Heroes and Dexter and House.
Yeah, a couple of episodes. So she seemed to be.
And Jessica
And
Jones.
one episode of Orange is the New Black. So TV nearly
A
the
lot of
whole way,
TV,
yeah.
yeah.
And well, it was all TV. Until this seems to be her first. Yeah, it is her first film. With it, and maybe her last.
Well, actually, that kind of ties in with it because I did say, like, I mean, I kind of feel like it was shot for TV. It struck me as a
It had
series,
that
like,
look,
you
yeah.
know.
And you know, with that fucking stupid camera thing that was going on, that used to happen a lot in like stuff like Casualty with
Yeah.
people that weren't aware. So there is some kind of English TV stuff to it, but yeah, it's not. Yeah.
But yeah, you're just because people are wondering why you're gone silent. You're just going, yeah, you're just reading the filmography of the
Yeah,
director.
yeah. So yeah, and now with the Daniel Espinosa, who directed Morbius.
George Daniel Espinosa.
Yeah, he did.
In fact,
Easy
what I'd
Money,
like
say
to-
Child 44. I think that was.
Yeah, I read the book, I think, and I enjoyed the book, so I might actually have a look at this.
Yeah,
And
well-
it says Naomi Rapace and Gary
Yeah.
Oldman and stuff like
It
that.
was
So
Gary Oldman was in it, yeah, and stuff, and Life as well. I didn't look at that with Ryan Reynolds, and so it was nearly like an alien thing. So he's got more movies coming up as well.
yeah, he's a bit of a film pedigree, whereas the other director has a TV pedigree.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So, and it actually, that's what it kind of looks like as well.
Yeah,
the
it
two
does.
films.
You do kind of see that though, like.
And that's not to be, I know, dismissive of like TV. You know, it's just it was the style of a TV
Yeah.
show rather than.
And as well, she directed some episodes of The Defenders, the Marvel, the Netflix Marvel thing where they had the whole lot of them getting together, which wasn't very good. But yeah,
But it was decent enough, I swear, for a first like big screen
it's
debut
like a first
directorial.
movie. Yeah, for a first movie, you kind of go, all right, look.
Yeah,
it's-
most people's first movies is fucking a way lot
Yeah.
lower down the totem pole than like a Marvel
It
film.
must be a bit unnerving as well. To kind of like you're going in, you're doing fucking
A big
movie,
Yeah.
and I seem to remember that happened. There was a couple of movies that tanked as well that had people from Game of Thrones went off directing it, where you're like, and like Game of Thrones, it was very cinematic. Well, some episodes were cinematic, but there's
EastEnders and Casualty are not cinematic.
yeah. But there's a different
Yeah.
thing there, and like we were saying, like I didn't realize what either one of them did, but going through it, Morbius feels like a Hollywood movie. There's just even a certain look to it, a certain sheen to the cinematography, where you kind of go, oh yeah, this feels like
Yeah. It should be in a cinema.
yeah. Whereas
I keep saying, I come back to it every time. Madame Web feels like it should be
it's
like
a pilot.
It's not even a pilot, but it feels like you could break it up, and it feels like it could be, say, a Supernatural or
Yeah.
a Heroes, or any of these shows that she's worked on, a Dexter or something like
But
that.
even
That's what it
there's
feels like.
the very end of Madame Web as well, which is really cringy, where she's there like smiling, even though she's blind, smiling, looking out a window, and she has a vision of herself as Madame Web, and her costume is awful. It's like these big 80s fucking poochy sunglasses or something. I think the bad guy in what's that, Jean-Claude Cyborg, wears those big kind of mirror glasses, and she's like in a really weird cheap looking leather costume, and the others are Spider-Woman, and you're like, oh right, whatever. But Morbius has to get it
it's
for the
gonna have
directing.
to, yeah.
So
How are we doing so far? Because we're up to the final category. I think Morbius already has it won.
Morbius has it won, but we're so close to the end. We'll just the it factor, one of a kind and transcendent. So it has to go to Morbius. Morbius was, even though it was a terrible film, it became a cultural phenomenon in a weird way.
Even just for the fact of the amount of memes that came out of Morbius, I think that probably wins with the it factor.
But it became a thing. It made fucking national news about when it got put back into the cinemas as well. As it was, I don't know if it was Sony taking the piss or if it was they were just like,
a little bit of a bounce anyway, because people were kind of doing the whole, oh, it's Morbin time, and they were going back to see it ironically.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, Sony don't care if you're watching it ironically or non-ironically. You're still having to pay to see it, aren't you?
I'd quite like to see Morbius popping up. If they do like a Sinister Six or some other format thing, or even another Morbius. Well, I'd look on Morbius too easily. Whereas if there was a Madame Web 2, which there won't be a Madame Web 2, because even most of the cast and crew kind of said afterwards that they felt like they were nearly fucking tricked into that. They thought that they were doing like a different type of movie that they thought, and then when they saw it, they were like, "Oh my god, what the fuck is this?"
That's not to say now it's an awful film. As I said, I quite enjoyed it as such, but it's very much a throwaway film.
Yeah, it's there's nothing to do. You can see why it kind of came and went. And a lot of people, the only things that people were saying that were remotely positive was that it was so bad it was good, and it was nearly one of those movies you could sit around having a couple of drinks and laugh at that how bad it was. And I think in years to come, that's all that'll be remembered for, if it's remembered at all. Whereas Morbius, I think, will be remembered.
Be it for good or for bad.
Yeah. I think if you give Morbius about 10 years, it's going to be remembered fondly. I don't think it's going to be this thing
Cult
like The Evil Dead or anything, but people will look back on it, I think, more fondly. Because I think it reminds me a lot of, say, Ghost Rider, Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider, or maybe even Ghost Rider 2, where it's like nearly, it should be just a throwaway movie where you kind of, fucking, but there's
something about
it does have that it factor. I don't, probably the way it's shot, because I think the way it's shot elevates it a bit. Jared Leto, for as much of a twat that I think he is,
I think he carries the film a bit.
He does, yeah. He gives it a bit. He's got that star quality to it. Whereas Dakota Johnson just feels like she doesn't really want to do it at points, or she doesn't get it, or she's just like, you could have anyone in it. If they had someone, I don't know, Angelina Jolie, Madonna. My references may be out of date.
A little bit old, yes. But I think the it factor definitely for Morbius.
Yeah.
So I think outright Morbius is definitely one. What is it, 7 to 3?
Yeah. So Morbius is declared the winner, and he stomps on the throat of Madame Web.
That sounds lovely.
Kicks her right in the head, because it's like, hey Morbius, stop, leave her alone, she's had enough. What are you doing? So if you're going to look at either one of these, Morbius, I think
it's probably the best.
Yeah. At the moment it's on Netflix in the UK and Ireland. I imagine it's probably on Netflix over in America,
US, UK.
Yeah, and other countries that have Netflix. I can't imagine it cost a lot to get it on. Madame Web, I would imagine, is streaming on the web.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Yeah.
Very funny.
But yes, so look, this week Morbius has been declared the winner. So
it definitely is Morbin time.
Yeah, Morbin time. Well, I love that. That was good. The memes got me into it.
Yeah,
they were.
I wasn't interested in the film until I saw the memes. Yeah,
because it reminded me of the old internet as well, where it was like, that's the power of Reddit or the old internet with stupid shit where it's just fun and no one gets hurt. It's not nasty.
Yeah, it's not overly malicious or anything like that. No one's been doxxed.
Yeah. Where it's just like, look, this is good internet fun.
Yes. Good internet fun.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so look, thank you for listening. It'd be great if you could. I hate doing the kind of, please don't forget to subscribe and give a like, but it would be great if you did that and give us a review somewhere. Like we keep saying, a good review, not a bad review. Don't destroy our spirits. Don't be nasty. Be good internet, not bad internet. So until next week, goodbye.